Welcome to AnyMask. This is AnyGal. This is a video where we will demonstrate how to make a large-sized AnyMask, which is a cloth, non-medical face covering. There are two pattern pieces for each mask, a big pattern piece and a little pattern piece, which can be found as a link to a PDF in the description below the video. The big pattern piece is marked out on a piece of cloth that has been folded in half. Line up the bottom of the big piece pattern on the folded edge and trace around. You're not going to use the top inch of the pattern, so feel free to cut that portion off. For now, I'm just tracing around each side. Here I'm using a pencil, but you can use a washable marker, and I just slide it down an inch to trace across the top where I'm going to cut my fabric. Now cut directly on the lines you made. This is an 18 by 22 inch piece of fabric, so I could get 2 full masks out of this. And this is what it looks like if you open it up, unfold it. I'm going to set that aside for now and cut the little pattern piece out. So we trace around the little pattern piece and again cut directly on the lines. This can be cut on a single layer of cloth. This just happens to be a double layer. The little pattern piece is then folded in half, right sides together. This cloth is hard to tell, but we're doing right sides together in preparation for marking the nose and chin darts. At this point, you could iron this flat to make the edge a little bit crisper, easier to work with. And also, while we're at it, we're going to do the bottom fold on each of the pieces. This fold will keep the edge of the mask from fraying when you put it through the washing machine. And here's the template to mark the lines where you're going to sew to create the darts for the nose and chin. So we're going to repeat on this piece. I turn up about 1 centimeter and then another centimeter for a double fold on both sides. Iron down and mark the lines to sew your nose and chin darts on the big piece. Sew directly on the lines that you created with a small back stitch at the beginning end of each line of stitching. Pull up the next corner, sew directly on the line, back stitch, take the big pattern piece and repeat the process. This is what will create the shape around the nose and the chin area in the final product. After you finish sewing all 4 of your darts, you can take the pieces off and trim the triangles, or you can go right into sewing the folded edges down, which is what I'm going to do here. Find my folded edge, make sure it's laying flat, and sew that down. No need to backstitch with these lines of stitches. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty with the video here coming up, but I think you'll be able to see that we're doing the other side now. Sewing down that folded edge pretty close to the side, like about 1/8 of an inch from where it folds. And then repeating the process with the big pattern piece. All of these edges are going to be sewn over again when we combine the 2 pieces together. And that's why you don't have to backstitch at the beginning and end of these stitches. There's very little trimming in this process. I'm just going to separate my 2 pieces from each other. And you can cut off the little overhang that's created by your fold on the large piece. The triangular shaped pieces created by the nose and chin darts add bulk to the finished item, so trim those off as well. Close enough to the stitching, but not too close, about 1/8 of an inch. Take the little piece and fold it wrong sides together, right sides out. You can press this flat with an iron if you'd like to. To put the 2 pieces together, open up the big piece so the right side is facing up towards you. The darts will form a pocket, which I usually point towards the left side. line up the points of your big piece and your little piece. And slip the little piece into the pocket of the big piece. Open up the little piece and push inwards to make sure that everything is lining up and it's all the way in. Take one side of the big piece, fold it up and over itself and the little piece. Line up the edges and the angles on the sides. Turn the piece around, make sure that everything's still tucked in place and lined up, and fold over the other side. The edges of the big piece are not going to fold all the way into the center crease. There will be a gap in between. Just make sure that the angles match on the sides of the fabric where you fold it up, and you'll know that you'll have good alignment. I put in just a couple pins, but you could put in a few more to keep all the layers in place as you take it over and sew it on the machine. Pieces are sewn together on the top and bottom edge, about a ½ inch in from the side. So using about a ½ inch seam allowance, which is about the width of my presser foot, I backstitch and sew down towards the center of the pieces. Once I reach the end of the fold, I open it up slightly to make sure that I'm sewing everything flat together, and then making sure I catch the edge of that second fold on the way down. Backstitch at the end, realign everything, and repeat on the other side. This pattern is pretty forgiving. If your seam allowance is not quite right or not quite even, it is going to work out just fine. The main thing you need to do here is catch all the inside parts of the little piece. So if anything, err on the side of a bigger seam allowance versus a smaller. Give a little back stitch here at the end. And now your pieces have been joined. Next, we're going to turn everything right side out. First, I flip over one tab at the one end. I poke out the corners, flip over the other tab, poke, poke, poke. And for the final flip, you're going to shove one of the tabs through the pocket and pull it out the other side. Now everything should be right side out. Push out your seams from the inside, flatten everything out. The next bit of sewing will be making the side flaps and sewing the line of stitches that will hold the nose wire in place. This line of stitches is about 4 inches long, so I place the 2-inch mark right on the center seam. And either using a fabric marker or a couple pins, mark 2 inches on either side. Then you will sew a 4-inch line of stitches between those two marks, about a ½ inch in from the edge. That creates a space to insert the optional nose wire. It also helps the mask hold its shape a little bit better when you wash it. This is where the tabs are sewn down on the sides. Fold it right up against the inner piece, the little piece, and sew pretty close to the edge again, about 1/8 of an inch. You want as much space as possible to be able to easily put in your elastics or ties. Backstitch at the beginning and end. Flip it over and do the other side. If you decide not to do the line of stitches for the nose wire, now would be a good time to do a line of top stitching close to the top and bottom edge. That would help the mask keep its shape and give it a nice finished look. Line up the first mark you made or pin that you have right under your needle. Go about a little over a ½ inch in. Flatten out your fabric. Do a quick back stitch and sew straight and even right across till you reach the next mark. Back stitch a tiny bit And that is the last step in sewing the mask. Trim off any loose threads that are on the outside. And insert your attachment of choice. Here I've got 2 lengths of elastic. This elastic's pretty sturdy, so it just slides right through. For the other side, I'm just using a crochet hook to pull it through. Slide the knots you made into the fabric part. If you'd like to use a nose wire, here I've got just a piece of paper clip. Find that line of stitching you made, go in from the side pocket, and slide it in place. And that is it. We are all done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful in making a large Innie mask. Using the different patterns, you can follow the exact same steps to make your own small or medium Innie mask.